Peace be upon you, and welcome to a new episode. Saniya Khan is a photographer living in Chicago with a TikTok account. She was a lively and energetic girl who loved life and was proud of her Pakistani roots and being Muslim. At the same time, she tried to live a modern life, blending the two cultures. In 2022, Saniya documented the events happening in her life on social media, especially her TikTok account. Her followers saw her as an inspiration, encouraging them to overcome difficult situations in their lives. However, on the other hand, some people from the Pakistani community viewed what she was doing as inappropriate and shameful. While she received beautiful and encouraging comments from girls with similar backgrounds from South Asia and Pakistan, she also received harsh and nasty comments, including death threats. Despite this, Saniya was very optimistic and energetic, and people with high energy like her are usually not affected by a few nasty comments. Unfortunately, one day, the unimaginable happened. But what exactly was Saniya posting on her account that made them so angry, and could this have had any relation to her tragic end? Today's story is a bit different and very complicated, but it is an important story that we need to know for awareness. I consider this more of a chat rather than a story narration, and I will try to be very neutral because there will be many differing opinions in the comments. As usual, before we start, don't forget to like and share your opinions on this controversial issue. Let's start with today's case. In the beginning, we go back to the year 2001 when Saniya Khan was 8 years old and her sister Iman was 4. Their family had just moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee in the United States. Saniya and her family all loved the city. The weather was beautiful, the people were friendly, and there was a Pakistani Muslim community there. From a young age, Saniya was very sweet and always smiling. She loved being in front of the camera and was full of energy and vitality. As she grew older and reached her teenage years, she became very rebellious and stubborn. She wanted to dress like other girls, attend parties, and go out, but her mother did not approve of this and focused more on teaching her the principles of Islam. Saniya had Pakistani culture and, at the same time, the open culture of the United States, which sometimes conflicted with each other. At home, Saniya was raised to respect elders, wear modest clothing, and understand that romantic relationships should only be within the framework of marriage. Doing otherwise would bring shame to the family. In her teenage years, girls sometimes get a bit confused and want to be free. In my opinion, mothers need to be smart in dealing with their daughters during this age, becoming closer and more like friends. In Saniya's case, her relationship with her parents was a bit strange, as if there was a gap between them. When Saniya entered university, she developed a passion for photography and dreamed of becoming a photographer. She practiced a lot. In her first year at university, she met a young man named Robert. Saniya fell in love with him, and he loved her too, but the problem was that he was neither Pakistani nor Muslim, a relationship her family would never approve of. She knew this well, but was very attached to him and asked him to keep their relationship a secret. During her university period, her parents separated in a very messy divorce, involving arguments over money and the house, everything we know about. What upset Saniya the most was seeing her mother being treated badly, ostracized by everyone, and blamed for everything, while no one blamed her father as if he wasn't part of the relationship at all. This caused her to distance herself from her father, and her relationship with him was limited. She lived with her mother and saw her father occasionally. As is typical in Pakistani culture, and I believe ours as well, we like to see our children in good professions like doctors, lawyers, or engineers. And we might not understand someone becoming a footballer, artist, or photographer, though these are also good professions and talented people in these fields can earn a lot. Saniya did what her parents wanted. She studied something good and indeed entered university and studied psychology. But after graduating, she decided to work in photography, not caring about people's opinions or her parents' wishes, and pursued what she loved. Saniya had many dreams like any girl her age. She wanted to meet the right person, fall in love, marry, have a family, and achieve her dream in photography. She was very talented and took great photos, and her clients were happy with her work. In 2016, she started having social media accounts, sharing her ideas and photos, using TikTok to grow her business and gain more recognition. If you want to see her TikTok account and her photos, you can look up Saniya Khan or Gemini Girl. Her work gradually grew, and she was left only to find the right person to marry. She knew that her family would not approve of the university boy, so she needed to find the right person to marry. She decided to use an online dating site to find someone from her background, a Pakistani Muslim, to introduce to her parents and get their approval. Saniya met a man named Raheel Ahmed, 26 years old, studying medicine. Raheel was somewhat handsome, charismatic, and of an appropriate age for her, most importantly, Pakistani and Muslim. When they met, they liked each other very much. He was funny, which she liked a lot because she also loved to joke and laugh. Her family and friends liked him very much too. The problem was that he lived in Atlanta and she lived in Texas, 11 hours apart. Despite the distance, they maintained their relationship, trying to meet on weekends. During this time, Saniya was sure of her feelings for Raheel and wanted to marry him. Sometimes, being an influencer means talking about your personal life, and Saniya did this on her accounts, bringing her closer to people and gaining more followers. Saniya was very romantic and loved to photograph couples and married people, excelling in this type of photography. She also had a blog where she wrote about her relationship with Raheel and gave relationship advice, saying that any two people in a relationship must support each other wholeheartedly. She often spoke about how kind Raheel was, making sweet surprises like bringing her flowers on Valentine's Day and taking her to romantic restaurants. Their relationship lasted 5 years, and finally, after those 5 years, Raheel proposed. This was a long time to decide to marry, and even her friends felt it was a long time, likely due to Saniya's fear of ending up like her parents with a divorce. The issue of her parents' divorce had a psychological impact on her. When people get married, they don't just marry the person, but the whole family. Raheel's family wasn't very impressed with Saniya and didn't like that her parents were divorced, even though it's a common thing that God allows, and it's not her fault they chose to divorce. Despite all this, they set the wedding date for June 20th, 2021. On the day, everyone attended. Her family and his family were all present. It was a grand wedding with lots of singing, dancing, and celebration. Saniya wore a beautiful, expensive red embroidered Pakistani bridal dress specially ordered from Pakistan. But during the signing of the marriage contract, something shocking happened. Raheel, holding a sword as per their tradition, seemed threatening, as if he was saying, "I have a weapon and I'm ready to use it." People were confused about what was happening and whether there was a problem. In fact, there was a real problem that occurred in the middle of the wedding. Imagine what the issue was and what the whole dispute was about. Raheel wanted Saniya's father to sit in a different place from where he was sitting. Naturally, Saniya's father responded. As an older man, it was inappropriate for Raheel to say such a thing. He told Raheel that he shouldn't be telling him where to sit. They started arguing loudly, saying things that shouldn't be said. Raheel said something like, "I've paid for everything here, so you all get out." And he slammed the sword on the table with great force. Of course, if any young man his age did this in front of an older man, especially his future father-in-law, it would be considered extremely rude and disrespectful. However, people intervened and calmed the situation down, and the day passed, and the marriage took place. But what was Saniya's stance on all this? You might think she sided with her father when it happened. In reality, no, she didn't do that. Saniya stood by Raheel and supported him, which I honestly see as a mistake on her part. Even if she didn't love her father, Raheel's disrespect towards her family was also disrespect towards her. That's my personal opinion, and I'd like to know your thoughts on this point. After the wedding, Saniya and Raheel lived in Chicago in an apartment on the 28th floor of a residential building. During this time, Saniya's work was going very well. She was always online, posting the photos she took for her clients. Raheel was still studying in medical school, and life seemed to be going well for them. It looked like she was happy in her new life. On November 7, 2021, a Pakistani program hosted Saniya. In the program, she said that she and Raheel had a very strong relationship, that she loved her husband very much, and that her life had become more beautiful since marrying him. She mentioned that he was now in medical school and close to finishing, and that until he graduated, she was the one supporting the household financially. But after he graduated, he would support the household, and they would start having children. Very nice words, but was her married life really as good as she was telling everyone? In reality, Raheel was either out of the house with his friends or at home studying most of the time. Meanwhile, Saniya was always home alone. Despite being the one supporting the household financially, he liked to belittle her and her work. He would often say things like her job wasn't a real job, and that the money she made was insignificant. Imagine living with someone who constantly undermines you and your work, even though they haven't succeeded in medical school, and you are the one supporting both of you. The crazy thing is that Raheel's family viewed him as the amazing guy studying medicine, even though he hadn't graduated yet. They saw him as impressive, whereas they saw her as just a photographer and TikTok user, thinking that the girls in their family, like his sisters or cousins, were much better than her. Naturally, Saniya felt stressed and frustrated. As she stood by him and supported him during his studies, he should have supported her in her work. After only 4 or 5 months of marriage, Saniya stopped communicating with her friends as much, and her presence on social media decreased significantly. When her friend reached out to ask why she had disappeared, Saniya said she had some family problems. Her friend was worried but didn't know what the issues were. It was unusual because Saniya usually shared her problems with her, so she felt that something big was being hidden. At that time, none of her friends saw her at all until January 2022. Saniya reappeared and called her friend. She was in tears and told her what Raheel had been trying to do to her. Her friend was shocked by what she heard. Raheel was dealing with mental and emotional issues, likely due to the pressure of studying and the expectations from his family to achieve a high status, to become a doctor as they dreamed. But he couldn't fulfill their dream and was struggling in medical school. The situation was difficult for him and affected his mental health, and Saniya endured it all until her own life was at risk. On December 7, 2021, Raheel attempted to end his life by jumping from their 28th floor balcony. The bigger disaster was that he wasn't just trying to jump, he wanted to take Saniya with him. Luckily, his mother was with them in the apartment at the time and somehow managed to calm the situation and stop Raheel from what he was about to do. At that time, Raheel had a severe nervous breakdown. They should have addressed this problem before it got worse. Raheel's mother asked Saniya not to mention the incident to anyone or report it to the authorities, even though what he did was an attempted murder. Saniya was terrified after what happened, feeling a lot of pressure and wanting to confide in someone. So, she called her friend and poured her heart out, telling her everything. Her friend was shocked and didn't know what advice to give her. Saniya herself didn't know what to do. The surprising thing was that Raheel and his family thought she was overreacting. They downplayed the situation, not realizing the seriousness of it and that Raheel had a real problem that needed to be addressed. It wasn't just about taking some sedatives. Even Saniya's father thought she was overreacting and that she should calm down and stay at home. So, Saniya turned to her friends for advice, feeling confused and unsure of what to do. When faced with such a situation, it's hard to believe it's really happening, and you start questioning how you ended up with this person, wondering why you didn't see things clearly from the start. The truth is, Saniya endured the situation and wanted to give herself and Raheel another chance. Raheel also told her that he was under immense mental pressure and wasn't in his right mind when he took her to the balcony. He promised her that he would do everything in his power to make her happy. Saniya agreed to give it another shot. However, Saniya soon discovered something new about Raheel that she hadn't known before. Raheel had lied to her about his age. When they first met, he told her he was 26 years old, but in reality, he was in his mid-30s. This revelation was a huge shock to her, not because of the age difference, but because he had lied to her. She felt she couldn't trust him anymore, and if he lied about his age, she wondered what else he might have lied about. Raheel was telling her that her mother said she should be better with him and support him more. So, what was she supposed to do more than that? She sat quietly and didn't report the issue with the balcony, and she was paying attention to him. Also, she was the one supporting the household financially and had tried many times to convince him to get treatment, but he refused, and both his family and hers thought he had no problem and that she alone was responsible for the success of their marital relationship. Saniya ignored the balcony issue and told her that such things sometimes happen in any home. Her only concern was that her daughter wouldn't leave the house or get divorced to avoid going through the same ordeal she experienced during her own divorce. I really liked her mother's attitude, saying that such things are normal in any house. It would be a disaster if these things were happening in any house. Anyway, the situation escalated to the point where they were making her feel that the attempted suicide from the balcony was her fault. Yes, it was your fault. You drove him to this result. Even though Raheel had a psychological condition before they got married, so it's not her fault. It's not her fault that he couldn't succeed in medical school. Saniya couldn't bear the responsibility of a mentally ill person refusing treatment, plus the immense pressure from his family and hers. Therefore, Saniya had to turn to her friends to talk about it. She told them that his family and her family were telling her that these were just illusions in her head and she should get over it. Her friends were very sympathetic and told her that if she felt she couldn't continue with him, she should end the marriage. Why endure something beyond your capacity? Saniya was so worried and afraid that she couldn't even sleep in the same room with him. A friend of Saniya's told her not to tell anyone that she had shared the story and that she would travel the next morning to pick her up from the house. The next day, her friend traveled from New York to Chicago, went to her apartment, and, of course, Raheel didn't know she would leave the house. While Raheel was out, Saniya quickly packed her clothes into a small bag, taking only the essential items, with her camera being the most important because it was her life and work. After packing her things, she and her friend left the apartment, scared that someone might see them or that Raheel might return suddenly, as if they were fleeing from a battlefield. They took a flight and went to New York to her friend's apartment. At that time, Saniya felt that what had happened was significant and couldn't be ignored. It wasn't normal to live with someone who tried to kill you, and this isn't the idea of marriage, living with someone where you constantly feel fear and are solely responsible for the marriage's success. Marriage should be about affection, mercy, and feeling safe and loved in your home. Despite the pressure from her parents, she decided to file for divorce. After filing, Saniya went back to live in her apartment, which she had shared with Raheel, while Raheel went to stay with his mother in Georgia. At that time, they were only separated. The divorce hadn't yet occurred. Saniya felt she had failed at something important in her life, but her friends were always supportive, telling her that she hadn't failed. On the contrary, she had experienced something and learned from it. Her friends encouraged her to start rebuilding her life and to become stronger. During the separation months, Raheel visited her several times at the apartment, trying to rekindle their relationship. The problem was that when he visited, he did petty things, like taking her wedding ring once and her house keys another time. She was uncomfortable with these visits and said that even if she had been thinking of reconciling after he took her ring, she was now sure she didn't want to go back to him. Sometimes influencers like to share what happened in their lives so that others going through similar circumstances can benefit from their experiences and avoid their mistakes. She was sharing that she chose the wrong person and that the relationship was very toxic, and she regretted spending years in that relationship. There were very positive reactions from her followers, with girls from the same religious and ethnic background as well as different backgrounds, some of whom shared that they had also experienced failed marriages and that she would eventually overcome it just as they had. In fact, she made a video that went viral where she was emotional and crying while talking about her marriage experience and how she felt isolated and fearful in her home. People reacted strongly to the video, and many girls were encouraged to take similar steps. She was very interactive with them, receiving many messages and feeling happy that she had done something valuable in her life. Therefore, she wanted to talk more about the issue, but on social media, while there are supportive and encouraging people who leave very nice comments, there are also those who write very harsh comments. Most of these negative comments were coming from people of the same culture as hers, from Pakistan or East Asia. The things they said were quite strong, such as accusing her of leaving room for the devil to play with her mind, dressing inappropriately, and saying she should return to God. They mentioned that marriage is a sacred bond and that she shouldn't talk about their private matters. While some of the comments had a point, the way they were expressed was very off-putting. The problem wasn't just that there were many people sympathetic to him and not to her. The problem was that she was receiving death threats in the comments. Saniya considered this quite normal and thought that everyone online gets annoying comments. She believed that anyone who writes a nasty comment should be blocked, and that's the end of it. Saniya's father was very upset when he saw her videos and told her not to post videos about her divorce from Raheel and to stop this childish behavior. Her mother was also never happy with her dressing and behavior, but Saniya didn't care about her mother's opinion. In reality, her mother's advice at that time was very correct, but the problem from the beginning was that her mother and family didn't provide her with the right support when she thought about divorce, mainly because they were initially against her divorce. Raheel had definitely seen the videos Saniya was making on TikTok, and it was very provoking for him. He probably felt insulted by how she talked about him in front of the whole world. Saniya knew he was unstable and might do anything, as evidenced by the balcony incident. So, when the divorce was officially finalized, Saniya changed the house phone and also changed the apartment door lock. She obtained a court order for protection, meaning he wasn't supposed to come near the building where she lived. At the time of the divorce, Saniya was 28 years old and decided to get a tattoo on her arm with the Roman numeral 28. This number also represented the floor she lived on in the building and the age at which she made the decision to divorce. That number was very significant to her. Interestingly, it was also the age at which she would die. Now, about 6 months had passed since the divorce, and it was clear that Saniya had completely moved on from Raheel. However, it seemed Raheel hadn't forgotten. On July 18, 2022, Raheel's sister reported to the police that he was missing, and that they hadn't been able to contact him for about 24 hours. She suspected he might have gone to Saniya's house. The police tracked his mobile phone signal and confirmed that he was indeed at Saniya's residence. At around 4:30 p.m., 2 police officers went to Saniya's apartment, not knowing what awaited them. When the police arrived at the building and reached the floor where the apartment was located, they were standing in front of the apartment door when they suddenly heard a gunshot. The police forced their way into the apartment, and as soon as they opened the door, they were shocked by what they saw. They found Saniya on the floor, drenched in blood, and she had already passed away. They then discovered that there was another person in the apartment, Raheel. Raheel had been shot in the head and was holding a gun. He was still alive, and it was clear that the gunshot they had heard while standing at the apartment door was the shot Raheel fired to end his own life after killing Saniya. They sent both to the hospital, where Raheel was also declared dead. To understand how this happened, let's go back to the beginning of the day. Raheel drove 700 miles from his family's home in Georgia to Saniya's apartment in Chicago, the same apartment where they had once lived together. Raheel was prohibited from entering that building by court order, so he talked to a real estate agent, asking to see an empty apartment in the same building. The agent showed him an apartment, and when he entered the elevator, he was carrying 2 bags, a backpack, which likely contained the gun, and the other bag which contained Saniya's wedding dress. Raheel exited the elevator with the real estate agent on the 27th floor. After viewing the apartment, he told her that he would visit friends in the same building. When Raheel left the 27th floor with the agent, the bag he was carrying was on his back. However, when Raheel re-entered the elevator, the bag was no longer on his back. Raheel placed the bag in front of him, which contained the gun, likely so he could quickly pull it out and confront Saniya. At around 11 a.m., Raheel went to the 28th floor and knocked on Saniya's door. What happened next is only speculation from the police. They believe Raheel, to persuade her to open the door, told her he had her wedding dress and wanted to give it to her. When Saniya opened the door, he shot her. When the police arrived at the apartment door at 4 p.m., they heard the gunshot, broke down the door, and discovered what had happened. Additionally, when they entered the apartment, they found a note from Raheel, left before he committed the act. Raheel wrote that he couldn't live without her and that he had held the gun to his head, but she tried to take it from him, causing the shot to fire unintentionally. He said he felt guilty and couldn't live with what had happened, especially since he was the cause of it. He described it as an unintended accident and apologized profusely. Investigators believe that Raheel's actions were intentional and that the note was not truthful. Raheel was under extreme emotional stress, having failed in his marriage and studies. Seeing the videos of Saniya moving on and seeming to forget him likely overwhelmed him. He couldn't bear the thought of her moving on and living her life with someone else. Saniya's father was unaware of what was happening in his daughter's life, especially in the last month of her life. He only found out about the divorce through her TikTok videos. Although Saniya was a victim, some people thought she was at fault and that Raheel was not, justifying what he did and the outcome as a natural result of her actions. On the other hand, there were comments from women of Pakistani and East Asian origins who were very sympathetic to her. So, are you sympathetic to her, to him, or neither? What are your thoughts on this strange case? Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.